Welcome to the Iferia TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Mark Burnett, former database programmer and the founder of MyBrainRestore. After being diagnosed with both Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, he applied his analytical problem-solving skills to pioneer a natural solution. He developed a unique ultra-chill milled technology to create a potent supplement, which he first tested on himself with remarkable results, including documented improvements in his neurological biomarkers. In this episode, we'll explore his journey from patient to inventor and how he engineered a new path for managing neurological health. So, Mark, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so let's dive in. Your story is incredible. A career in database programming and then a personal diagnosis that led you to become an inventor. So, what was the specific moment you decided you had to stop being just a patient and start engineering your own solutions?
Sure. Well, essentially, I had started to develop Parkinson's. I noticed when COVID was going around and everything was kind of shut down. So that was my first indication something was wrong. It wasn't COVID. I kept banging into things, falling, tripping, doing all the things people learn they might have some sort of issue, such as MS or Parkinson's, as an example. And so as that started to progress. The last thing I wanted to go to is doctor's office because I hadn't gotten COVID yet. So didn't feel like sitting in a room full of people with COVID. Didn't seem like the good thing. So I delayed it a little bit, but by the time I did get to see eventually the neurologist, they said, yes, clinically you have Parkinson's disease. And they gave me some medicine, that they give everybody, an L-DOPA style medicine, which was invented back in the 60s, which most people don't realize is very old. And it was actually from a plant originally from India, where people noticed if they ate the plant, they didn't tremor. So this is where that whole idea came from. But unfortunately, it's what the doctors still give out today. They haven't changed it. And so when I asked for my prognosis, where do we go from here? I mean, that's the pill you're giving me is going to work, right? They're like, well, it works for about 5 years and then pretty much it doesn't work anymore. I said, then what? And they said, well, you get worse. I'm just not someone who goes for that. Get worse. That can't be right. So I did a lot of research. I did some additional blood work. I did some additional tests to prove my position. I took a very advanced, what they call SYN-1 test, which actually sees the Parkinson's tendrils in your cells when they do a biopsy and stuff. Amazing test. And it's up on my website, MyBrainRestore.com. People can go there for free and they can go to my journey and they can actually see my medical records. I do post everything. Okay. I'm very transparent about that. That's important, because anybody can put out a supplement and, it could be some dirt in a jar. You wouldn't know, right?
Hmm.
And there's 1,000 people who make vitamin C or vitamin D or whatever, So how do you get through all that? I had read about a Japanese university doing a study on mice, and it took me about a month and a half to get the actual documentation from the scientists of exactly what they did. And what happened was when they were able to synthesize or try to synthesize this natural ingredient they got, basically they couldn't synthesize it. Okay. So that's where the problem came in at, that they couldn't synthesize this. So they sort of abandoned it. But yet again, it was a natural product they had given to the mice and they cured 100% of the mice from Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. And to me, that was that aha moment. Now, as you mentioned before, I'm a database programmer by trade. That's how I started. Prior to that, I was studying to be a veterinarian. So I had two key elements in my head. One was biological, from a science standpoint, from learning to be a veterinarian, but then switching gears and becoming a database programmer, which required a lot less schooling and and paid better.
Mm,
So I went in that direction. But that also puts you in the mindset of when you look at a database you're programming, what you start with is a blank screen. And when you start with that blank screen, you have to have the vision of where you're going and how you're going to get there and what are you going to do and all the elements you have to put together to make that database work. I was
mm,
used to that, because I was hired by huge companies around the world to do coding for them. And I had a programming team. Working from a blank slate and having a biological background gave me the key elements I needed to read that scientific journal, realize what they were doing, realize the natural product that they were using, but they were trying to synthesize it to turn it into a $10,000 a month drug. And it's like, well, most people can't afford that, but that's what drug companies have come to nowadays. Anything new is going to cost a fortune and most out of most people's reach. So I was able to source that product in its raw form, be able to use the ultra chill mill method that we trademark to preserve it to make sure it works right because it was noticed that if it gets hot during any processing, then it's worthless. It completely doesn't work. So I started using it, and when the first couple months, when you have Parkinson's, and I also tested for Alzheimer's positive, um, in the first couple months, you don't notice being normal. It's kind of a weird thing, but when you don't trip or you don't fall downstairs, you just kind of think, hey, I had a good day today. And then you start realizing, well, I haven't done that in 2 months. Where before I was doing it all the time. And I had actually gotten so much better taking this product from Parkinson's and also the Alzheimer's side that I decided to run in the Michael J. Fox marathon, which everybody knows from Back to the Future. Okay, movies. And this is actually what I was wearing at the time, running that marathon. Now, I shouldn't have been able to run that marathon at all. I shouldn't have been in it because they don't let a lot of Parkinson's people in it. It's all sorts of family members running for the Parkinson's people. But I said, no, I think I can do it. I'll knock it out. I went all the way through. I ran the thing with a couple other Parkinson's people that had it milder than me. I was at stage 3, technically at that time. And I felt I had gone already to stage 1. At the end, I got a medal, from the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which was exciting that I was able to do that. And then I was able to do new blood work, which proved my point even further. So I knew it was working. And at that time in June, when I did that, I decided to start working on the company. So that's where we're at now. The company has been started. We have buyers that came in from that event and other events I've come to. I've been on forums and we'll be on Amazon. So we're getting ready to go on Amazon in just a couple days. So by the time this airs, you should be able to find us on Amazon. Also, just looking for My Brain Restore, you should be able to locate us.
great. That sounds like a really fantastic journey for you, Mark. So the Japanese research was key, but
Yes.
you discovered your own, like you discovered that their method of preparing the seed was the problem. So walk us through that eureka moment, and how did you figure out that heat was destroying the active properties, and what was the first experiment you ran to test your theory?
Well, the scientists had actually done most of the work in the sense of preparing it multiple different ways. And so they had set the groundwork in their own research, saying they had tried it to make it into a hot tea, as an example, which was an old way this natural ingredient was actually used. It was quite often used that way for thousands of years, actually. I mean, it's an old plant. And so what happened was when I read that, they were really the ones pointing out that heat was the problem. If you tried to extract it like you would other type of products, that extraction also makes it worthless. So there was a lot of things that made it didn't work that you would normally see in a supplement, but it just came down to, the raw component, but it had to be milled so it didn't get hot. So I perfected the way to mill it and drop our mill temperatures way low so that that would preserve it even further. And that's what I took. I started doing that, doing the experiments in that way. I knew that was my target. In addition, we added and made a proprietary blend where it's 99%. of the seed, but it's also 1% of a seaweed, strangely enough, that was well known for cutting down on inflammation, which again, the scientists had pointed out maybe these should be combined, but they didn't say which one. I had figured that out. And also I had taken supplements, all sorts of supplements. Every supplement recommended I had taken a year before. Nothing. Didn't do anything. But then I started to realize these supplements help you kind of not get it. They don't really help you when you have it. And that became more of the key because what happened in the mice experiments was that after they cured every mouse of these mice, as I should say, mice, of all these different neurological conditions, they then turned around and gave it to healthy mice. And what they found was that those mice could run mazes and get out of situations 20% faster. So that meant it was a preventive for those 15% of the people in the world that have genetic predisposal to things like Parkinson's. But it also meant it prevented things like Alzheimer's and things of this order. Upon further research, I actually found that doing that further research, I found that the glymphatic system in the brain, which was only discovered in 2012 and only recently rewritten about in May of 2025. That's how new it is. The scientists doing experiments on it, they realized that was the key to clearing these things away from the brain. That was it. That was the problem. And they were all getting jumbled up. And they even gave it, the scientists gave it sort of a nickname called the brain's dishwasher. And because that's what it was doing, it was basically clogged. So if you can think of anything clogged in your home, when it goes bad, it goes real bad. And you get stuck with all these things in your head. So the idea was to get them out. And so what our product did, which is here, which like I said, is going to be on Amazon and at mybrainrestore.com, we basically, I started taking it. I had people come in and start buying it. And then I started to see an unusual result happening where people I was shipping to had DR in front of their name. And I realized they were doctors. And I finally got to talk to one. And I talked to the guy and he goes, yeah, I'm a retired physician. Yeah, I'm a surgeon. And I said, well, what prompted you to do this? He goes, there's nothing else that'll fix it. So the fact that you have that is amazing. And so 10% of my buyers are doctors. So I got in the doctor community. They're not giving it to their patients. They're taking it themselves, which is pretty weird. But I'm thankful for that. There's a certain amount of patting you on the back when you have physicians going, no, I'm not taking the stuff I normally give everybody. And after 6 months of taking this and now being 10 months, in the 10th month period, I did redo a blood test. Now, this blood test was for Alzheimer's. It's called the amyloid beta 4240 test. It's well known as the key uh, blood test to take to detect Alzheimer's in the body. NIH, the National Institute of Health, believed that it may also show Parkinson's or dementia, which, there's some science saying different things, but essentially it seems they're all centering around this one system in the brain. Once I got to the 10th month, I asked my doctor to redo that test that shows I have Alzheimer's. And he said, no, it's impossible. It cannot be reversed. Can't be done. And if you go in and you Google the glymphatic system and say, can it be reversed? Or I should say, let me reword that. The amyloid beta 4240 test, can that be reversed? Google comes back and says, no, it can't. So I finally, after 10 doctors, got one to say, okay, I'll give you the test because you're annoying me. Okay. I don't want you in my office anymore. So I got the test done. But what was surprising was I actually made the test came back 10% better than it was when I took it before I took this. And the doctor was astounded because he goes, well, that's impossible. You just did the impossible. You did something no one's done in the world is reverse that number. And I said, that's what I thought was going on because I could think better. I didn't get lost. I didn't lose my keys. I didn't go in a room and go, why did I come in here again? All those things. And when you have Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and you trip, you can't remember why you tripped because you have Alzheimer's with Parkinson's. It becomes a bad circle. But I haven't tripped. I don't have shakes anymore. The tremors went away. My ability to think and everything like that clearly has gone through the roof. I actually played a memory game with my wife, which is kids play. You know, you put these little tiles down and you have to pick two animals and you have 36 different tiles. It's hard to do. And my wife's 15 years younger than me. I beat her in this game and badly. So now she says, I won't play anymore. I'm done. You're on your own. So I couldn't have done that without this, ingredient. And now people are turning and understanding that if you go to a doctor, especially say in the United States, the average in the United States is 7 minutes a doctor gets to see with you, and two other people are in another room, right? So they don't really have time to read through medical journals. They don't have time to say, sure, take this. About all my doctor eventually said, "Well, you're doing great. Just keep taking what you're taking." And of course, that was this. My Brain Restore product is what I was taking, and I didn't even tell the doctor that. So I know she didn't pass around all the information. It's just a word of mouth, got it out there. But it's exciting to see something like this. It's exciting to see it, especially since a lot of drugs have an enormous amount of side effects. I didn't experience side effects from this in any major way. It is a fiber product, so there's fiber issues. Like if you take something like Metamucil or a lot of fiber, well, your partner's not gonna like you, might because you might have some gas, and you might stink the room up a little, but that adjusts itself, and the body is very good about adjusting itself, and so it works, that's all I can say. It would work for me, it worked for the mice, and it's working for the people that are writing me and using the product, buying it at mybrainrestore.com, and we'll be getting it on Amazon as we start to get feedback, but at our own website, we have a lot of information. So we put up an FAQ for health providers. We put up an FAQ for people that would be using it. I encourage them to read my journey. There will be a My Journey book out. That'll also be on Amazon and you can download it. But there's a little secret I'll share with your people. If they go to the website, mybrainrestore.com, they hit on FAQ. Underneath it, they'll see free PDFs. If they go there, they'll have an opportunity to download the book for free, which normally would sell on Amazon or eBay. And that would be essentially an ebook or a PDF, whatever they want to download. It's right there for
Mm,
them.
right. So you chose to make your product a powder, not a pill, specifically because
Correct.
many patients have trouble swallowing. So that's, in my opinion,
Yes.
a human-centered design choice. So how did your personal experience shape the entire user experience for My Brain Restore?
Sure. Well, besides getting better, which everybody wants to do, I think one of my people that a banker that I talked to actually said, look, if you can make people 10% better, they'd be happy with you. And I'm like, well, I've made myself 100% better, and, they're like, It's amazing." But so part of it was thinking in making it was how could we make it palatable, and I started that early on. Like, how am I going to take this? Am I going to take that many pills with Parkinson's? I didn't have quite the problem swallowing pills, but sometimes. So normal supplements or something I would take, they get stuck because the muscles in the neck here can have the same kind of tremors and problems that are throughout the rest of the body. So to me, making it in a powder form made the most sense. And we're already making it into a powder anyway. It's just, does it taste good? And so I had to experiment a lot with not putting in hot ingredients. It can't be in anything hot. You can't put it on top of your, sizzling steak. Okay, that's not going to work. That'll completely destroy it. But what you could put it in is yogurt. You could put it in pudding. You could put it in smoothie. Instant breakfast was a thing here. You could mix it with milk and turn it into like a chocolate milk. You could mix it in with that. And then I got a bunch of nurses. Some of my friends are nurses, and I said, "Hey, can you guys come over here and try this?" So they all tried it different ways, and one just they started sticking their fingers in the jar, going, "All right, let me taste it." I'm like, well, "I wouldn't do that," but they're like, "No, it tastes pretty good. It's kind of earthy, And I'm like, "Okay." I'm not going to lick it out of the bowl, But when you mix it in with yogurt, when you mix it in with that, it just disappears. It dissipates. It's not like a protein shake where the proteins bind together. So when you put it in, it kind of clots and it's hard to get a protein shake to mix. This doesn't do that. It dissolves very nicely. It might make your yogurt a little grainy, but there was another thought to that. It wasn't just about me taking it or people taking it who could. My other thing was caregivers. When people have Parkinson's, it's their spouse taking care of them or their children taking care of them. Taking care of an ornery old guy, isn't easy as an example, or old grandma going to beat you. Okay. Which we've all had that run into that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I had a grandma. And so part of it was, well, how could the caregivers put it in pudding or put it in yogurt where the person taking it wouldn't throw it across the room? Because that's what happens. I like my yogurt, but I don't want to take a pill. I don't want to do this. So it also became a caregiver component. How can the caregiver get this person better? And that helps the whole family in multiple ways. It's not just emotional. If you have Alzheimer's, a person might get out and walk away. And it surprises me that in the United States, we've just come up with this thing. Oh, if you walk 5,000 steps a day or 7,000 steps a day, your Alzheimer's will get busy. And I think about it as kind of a joke because it's like, well, if you walk 7,000 steps outside, you're gone. Somebody's going to find you. You don't know how to get back. To me, sometimes advice is like, what? It's not something an Alzheimer's person does, and a Parkinson's person probably can't walk like that anyway if they're advanced like me. I was very limited, or I'd trip. I even went to wearing steel pointed boots, construction shoes that I wouldn't hurt my toes when I'd trip. Or if I'd slip or something, at least I would have strong shoes. The other thing I found would do, and this is good for your audience, if you get those steel plated worker shoes, they're very heavy. They weigh about a pound and a half a piece. Okay.
Mm,
So
mm,
at a pound and a half a piece, you're basically just under a little kilo a piece per shoe. That additional weight makes you walk a little, you put your foot up like a horse almost. You're lifting your foot better. So it creates a situation where obviously you can correct some of the problems. But after a few months of taking the My Brain Restore, essentially, I was able to ditch the boots and go back to just tennis shoes. And that's what I did. And that's how I ran the Michael J. Fox marathon. Was in my new set of tennis shoes that I got to run that event. But before, tennis shoes will trip you. So as you point out, every step of the way, I was thinking, how do other people use this? How do people do this? We even came out with a downloadable checkoff list. We tell everybody who buys our product, get a checkoff list, check how bad you are, put a 10 as I trip all the time, put a 9, I, fall down occasionally or whatever. In other words, make a number system. The higher number, the worse you are. Keep taking this, take it for at least 6 months, get a subscription to it, take it, and keep checking that box off every week, every month. Go back to it, put it on the refrigerator or something, and go, I don't remember tripping this week. I don't
mm.
remember that happening. That's an indicator that it's working. That's how
Right.
you test it at home. You don't need a doctor to tell you that. You're going to know. You just don't notice those small things. But if you write them down, make a journal, then you start to notice the small changes. And
Mm,
then you're not going to want to stop because you want to get out of this situation as best you can. And,
yeah.
we have to say, no, it won't cure anything. And all the rules say we can't say it can cure anything. But hey, I'm talking to you, here I am, and my hands are like this. Okay, they work. Okay, there's the Parkinson's joke where you say, look, my hand is nice and steady, but I drive with this hand. But
Yeah.
for me, I noticed steadiness. I noticed no tremors. I did all that. So we put that down. That's important. You make a journal, make sure your product you're taking is working for you. And those were the things I didn't notice in other supplements. However, I do believe other supplements help this, because Parkinson's, some scientists believe it forms in the gut from irritation. So being able to help, that is important. And we list the exact other supplements that I do take. Individually, they don't work, but along with my Brain Restore and at mybrainrestore.com, they do in fact function. And we believe that helps them function even better and faster. Nobody wants to keep this stuff. Nobody wants Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or dementia, that's for sure.
All right. So for the audience listening who wants to solve big human problems, so what's the most important lesson that you've learned from transitioning from writing codes to formulating a life-changing supplement?
Sure. Well, we all have to trust doctors for certain things, but I would say doctors don't have time to read every medical research paper that comes out. And my doctor would
Mm,
be the first to admit that. And so you have to really think outside the box if you have something. And there are other people that are getting treated with Parkinson's with electrodes being planted in their brain, and they send electricity through it and they stop the tremors. And to me, that's very expensive. Number one, it requires a specialized doctor to do it, but it just doesn't. It's not long term, And if your batteries run out, and in a second, I've seen it work. Within 1 second, your tremors are back full force. So to me, I didn't want to be in that situation. I wanted to be in a situation where I could use a low cost product that would work, and I could prove work before I brought it out. So for me, it was all about proof. That was the most important. I didn't talk to anybody about it except a small group of people, pharmacists, nurses, that were willing to assist me with ideas and thoughts. Even when the pharmacist wanted it, I kind of laughed. I said, "You're a pharmacist? You don't know how to get this?" He goes, "No, I've never even heard it." It is a very special version of this plant, and that is the only version that the scientists test. So we only use that version, and that version is hard to come by, but we have set up worldwide ways of getting it, but we get it and buy it and only make it here in the United States. So at this time, it's only where we manufacture and mill it because we really need to keep track of that. If you buy this type of powder or something, and we'll get competitors for sure, who knows what they put in it? With us, you're getting the same thing I take every day. So, I mean, I literally, when they make a batch, they make a jar for me. They just don't bother to put the label on it. That's the only difference. I'm that at that level. But I don't wanna stop taking it because I don't want this to come back. Nobody does. It's horrendous what it does for what it does to families, what it does to individuals. Alzheimer's, as you can imagine, people not remembering who their wife is or their kids is heartbreaking. It's absolutely amazingly bad, and I've known people who've had it that bad where one of my friends, he was older and he had Parkinson's and dementia, which is a form of Alzheimer's, but he would stare at a mirror and argue with himself for hours. He didn't recognize himself in the mirror. And these are the things in the background that happens in families. You can imagine how frustrating that is. That grandpa or dad doesn't understand who we are anymore. It's horrible. For the person who had that individual who passed away last year, the thing I told them to do is cover all the mirrors. Cover the mirrors in the bathroom, cover them everywhere so he can't see himself because he's just going to sit there and argue all day long. And it worked, but what about just not having to do that? What about, that was a caregiver, his wife taking care of him. What if she could give him something that would help him not do that? That would support that glymphatic system and get things cleaned out. And I wish I had come up with this prior to him passing away. I really do. Keep inside these neurological diseases, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Michael J. Fox, has Parkinson's, and he had it since he was 29. That's a long time. That means in the movies, when he was making the movies, he had Parkinson's at that time. And he believed he got it on the movie set. He believed because they blow up things in your face, they blow powders in your face to make a scene. He's like, I have no idea what I'm breathing in. It's a prop guy, you know, throwing stuff at me. And he believes that's where he got it. And a lot of people do get it from environmental situations like mine. I was born in Camp Lejeune. It was a base, a military base. The water was contaminated with TCE, which they find out later causes Parkinson's later in life. And so I kind of know where mine came from, but most people will never know where theirs come from because TCE is in brake cleaner fluid, it's in wig glue, it's in that correction fluid you put on a paper to fix it. Those are all TCE products, and it hangs around for a long time. So, anyone can get it anywhere in the world. And one doctor said it's really a worldwide pandemic, Parkinson's itself. As we get more and more industrial solvents and things like that out there, and people breathe them in daily routine things they do, well, you're going to get it. And So our product is also, the idea is it can be a preventive. So the idea would be it could be taken in a lower dose, which we supply, and it's called the preventive version. And they just take that to stop it from developing in the first place. And that was also said by the scientists. They thought it was a great idea to make it a preventive because it worked on the mice that were perfectly fine and improved their memory. Now, I don't know what the gaming industry is going to do. They're probably going to dive in and go, wait a minute, it improves memory? You know, can I game better? Probably. Would it give me an edge? Maybe. Maybe you're one of the mice that didn't have a problem and now can be sharper. It kind of makes sense. It's nourishing a part of the brain that gets stuck. It makes sense. You get rid of the problem. The brain has a great way of healing itself, but it can't do it if it's stopped up. That's the key.
All right. So, I'd like to ask, can you briefly tell us what does the word innovation truly mean to you, and how does it relate to your work in the journey from applying a programmer's logic to the messy, complex world of human biology?
Sure. Strangely enough, what I did and started doing was before AI kind of got out there and took over what I did, when you think about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
AI, when you think about it, a lot of people are scared of it, but the medical community is very excited about it because AI can go through, let's say, 10,000 x-rays in a microsecond and look for patterns that a technician might miss. And even if a technician only misses, let's say, 5% of a small dot in an X-ray on a lung or MRI on a lung, let's say, and they miss it, but the AI can catch it and say, "Hey, this could be a problem. I see a pattern because I just compared a million records around the world in that second, and I'm saying this develops into this." So that sort of thinking was already in my head because, again, I was used to starting with that blank screen. And I always understood when doing database programming, you look at where you're going. You look at, well, what do I want? I'm going to draw on the board or I'm going to draw on a piece of paper. This is what I want the screen to look like. But I don't have that screen. I have to write it. I have to figure out from a relational tables in a database, how am I going to relate this to this? Or how am I going to bring this up? Or the customer might want this or that. All these were elements to how you design something and how you build something. And then studying to be a veterinarian and actually working at an animal hospital when I was younger, I saw miracles, where sometimes there was an interesting situation where the doctor said this animal's not going to live, and he told the person, I don't think it's going to make it. We're going to give it some really strong painkillers and kind of prevent it from happening. The painkillers are so strong they would probably kill the animal, but the animal's going to die anyway because just can't get around this problem. And the guy went back. He was doing large animal side, and he went back to the farm and there was that cow that he was treating, the calf, treating up and running around. And he talked to the farmer and he said, well, I thought the medicine would kill him. We just gave it to him for pain. And he goes, he didn't kill him. He slept all the time and got up one day and was fine. And I guess that stuck in my head, that sometimes you have to look at different ways, to do things.
Hmm.
And one person I learned something from that I had an opportunity in Washington, D.C. to meet was a man named Norman Vincent Peale. Now, Norman Vincent Peale wrote a book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And I actually met the man in real life. We spent some time together. My boss knew him, and he's a very famous guy. And we went to a seminar with him where he had 1,000 people in the audience. And he told everybody in the audience, he said, would everybody um, try to stand up for me? And half the people stood up and the other half said, continue to sit down. And he said, no, everybody, please try to stand up. And again, everybody was confused. Some people sat back down. Other people, you no idea what he's talking about. It didn't make any sense. And he goes, that's right. Because you can't try to do anything. You're either doing it or you're not. And that stuck in my head. You have to have that kind of drive. That's it.
All right, Mark, it's been a really interesting an insightful conversation with you. So, for our listeners who are inspired by your story and want to learn more, so for those who might want to start their own journey with My Brain Restore, so what is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, the best place for them is to come to the website mybrainrestore.com. And if they go there, they can see my journey, which I update, which they can keep track of how I'm doing and what's going on. But in addition, if they use, we have a code in the book that'll be out. If they use ebook 10, that as a discount code when they check out, then they'll get 10% off their order. And that 10% stays if they get a subscription, which most people will, because it's not something you can take one jar and get better. It doesn't work that way. This takes continued, taking it and get to that 6 month, year period, then you're gonna know where you're at with it, okay? So that's the key. Come to the site. They can find it also on Amazon. Our book will be up there. Up there, it'll be for sale because it's Amazon. But again, if you want to get the book, go to the FAQ at our page and click free PDFs and just download the book. You can read it that way. And we have a new 2000 or 2026 book coming out, which is we came out with the 2025 one to start, but then so many things changed and so many things got better. We had to update the book. We have the 2026 version out there too. So Amazon, our website directly at mybrainrestore.com. You can check it all out, read everything we have, learn everything first, be happy. And if you need to call us, 202-536-5000, easy number to remember. You call us. We answer the phone 7 days a week. You don't get AI, you get one of us. Period. We don't
Hmm.
believe in using AI to answer phones. That everybody hates that.
Yeah. All
You got to
right.
have humans.
Yes, yes, yes. People, I mean, people who want serious or urgent assistance, they actually, I mean, almost everyone would prefer to talk to a human in that scenario and not an AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, it's been a really great chat with you today, Mark, and
Yeah,
I'm really excited to have you
definitely.
on the show.
Absolutely. Good to be here. I appreciate it and good luck to your show. And hopefully we'll get some people out there better. I certainly hope so.